Brands should encourage influencers to create engaging content that resonates with the audience and incorporates subtle calls to action to drive engagement. Emphasizing storytelling and creativity really helps to capture the attention of the TikTok audience, obviously, prompting them to engage with the content through likes, comments, and shares. But by focusing on storytelling, leveraging unique hashtags, and measuring those engagement pieces, brands can effectively engage with influencers and drive meaningful interactions and conversions. But I would also say brands should really trust the instinct of their influencer partners who have built their own audience, right? They're the experts on the audience and what's going to relate or resonate with them. So there should be a balance between the brand priorities and creative control.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing Podcasts. Here's Kevin.
Super excited to have Cristy Garcia on as a guest. Cristy has been with Impact, I think, since 2018 and is now the Chief Marketing Officer. So thanks so much for joining me, Cristy. We'll start with sort of a little bit of a transition that you guys have been through. Certainly in the past, Impact.com was thought of as really an affiliate marketing platform. And now increasingly, it's sort of a platform that connects influencers and brands with merchants. Influencers with brands and merchants. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that transition, because you were sort of there during that transition.
Sure, and we're still that platform for affiliate marketing. We do have a new platform that we built specifically for influencer marketing, and that has, certain reports and metrics that are really important to that audience, let's say. But the truth is, our industry has really gone through a really immense transformation in the last couple of years. We've moved from an advertiser-controlled environment to one where consumers are really in the driver's seat. And they today want to learn about a brand from other people. They want to hear directly from customers when evaluating products and services. They don't want your ads. And it's this kind of transparency and authenticity that helps build trust and loyalty. We know that the rise of influencer marketing really took off during COVID, right? When people were at home, they were craving social interaction. They were craving engagement. Maybe they were shopping more as entertainment. But we saw influencer marketing, the market size increase significantly during that time. So Impact wanted to get ahead of that trend. We know that consumers do look to influencers because of their authenticity. And that's something that we stand behind. A good partnership needs to be an authentic partnership. And so now we're working with influencers in addition to affiliates.
Yeah, well, that's somewhat prescient of you guys to sort of simultaneously keep your feet in both of those pieces of the market. It's interesting because influencers sometimes act very similar to publishers, but they have that authenticity and credibility that a publisher brand often does not have, particularly the smaller publishers. One might make the argument that some of the top journalistic publishers still have credibility, but certainly once you get into the long tail, you don't have nearly the same credibility as a publishing brand as you do when you talk about an influencer who's an individual who's talking about a product or a service and making a recommendation. So how does that really change their value to the brand? Because it would seem like it's goes beyond performance marketing, right? They're adding value to the brand above and beyond sort of the traditional performance marketing KPIs.
That's right. So influencers do act like publishers to a certain extent. I'd say that there's been, I think influencers have known about affiliate marketing. I don't know that they have exercised affiliate marketing, but I know that it's out there, it's been out there, and influencer channels, not new either. It's been around for a while now. But they are acting as publishers, but they also are acting as the introducers at the very top of the funnel. So we're seeing them do education videos, awareness videos, product reviews, things like that. So you can see top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel, and the activities that are kind of driving the customer journey. And I think influencers have largely been viewed at like the very top. Like people think that's all they do. Right. But the truth is, through promo codes and through these product reviews and links, they're able to refer business directly to the brands that they're talking about. And in that way, they are acting like affiliate publishers. But I think there's still an education that's needed to help influencers understand all the nuances within affiliate marketing. And that's something that we try to do through our training courses. And it's an education for brands to say, like, look, you don't have to only work with them on a flat fee basis. That's how they like to get paid. And maybe there's a hybrid payment model where you're paying them flat fee and performance. But I think the benefit of performance in general, just the passive income that can come from one great article, that's not a hard sell when you talk to influencers. It's just a matter of educating them.
Right, right. You bring up an interesting point because, different platforms on which influencers may have their primary footprint, because you sort of see influencers usually have their primary platform. Maybe it's YouTube for Mr. Beast, and for somebody else it's Instagram, and for somebody else it's TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Some of those platforms make it reasonably easy to include outbound links somewhere, a click away, either on the desktop environment or the mobile environment, and others actually really sort of make it very difficult or nearly impossible to add clickable links to things. And so, from a performance marketing perspective, you need to figure out how to work within that as an influencer, and of course, as a brand partnering with an influencer. And you mentioned coupon codes is obviously a great way to work within a video-centric context and sort of give the consumer an opportunity to just take advantage of an offer. But, it's a little imperfect. So how do you engage an influencer as a brand when they're happen to have their biggest footprint on a very video-centric platform like a TikTok?
Yeah. Creativity, I would say. Engaging with influencers where direct clicks and coupons may be less effective, it really does require a creative and authentic approach. It's crucial to leverage the platform. Like TikTok has unique features and audience behaviors that you would need to look at. Utilizing features such as branded effects, challenges, and exclusive promotions can enhance brand visibility and incentivize viewer action even without the coupon code. So brands should encourage influencers to create engaging content that resonates with the audience and incorporates subtle calls to action to drive engagement. Emphasizing storytelling and creativity really helps to capture the attention of the TikTok audience, obviously, prompting them to engage with the content through likes, comments, and shares. But by focusing on storytelling, leveraging unique hashtags, and measuring those engagement pieces, brands can effectively engage with influencers and drive meaningful interactions and conversions. But I would also say brands should really trust the instinct of their influencer partners who have built their own audience, right? They're the experts on audience and what's going to relate or resonate with them. So there should be a balance between the brand priorities and creative control. But even on platforms like TikTok, there are ways to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Follow-up question to that, because you brought to mind something I've noticed with some of the more savvy influencers, which is even if they're particularly centric on one platform, they're starting to realize, like, hey, I sort of built my brand and I built my business on top of this platform. Not only should I branch out to the other platforms, but I should find a way to establish a PII relationship directly with my followers, right? So even though email is considered antiquated by anybody under 30, right? Getting email registrations. I mean, obviously, Mr. Beast is like the perfect example because he's got chocolate and he's got burgers and he's got lots of ways to develop a direct relationship with his fans and followers. And I see some other influencers starting to realize, like, wait a minute, I can't build my entire foundation on one platform. I sort of need to figure out how to maybe even have a PII relationship. But are you seeing that trend as well, that influencers sort of starting to realize I need to be a multi-touch point person?
Oh, influencers absolutely understand the need to diversify. You can't fish from the same fishing hole forever and expect to catch, all the time.
Right.
So definitely, YouTube is great for long form video or short form video. It's really good for showing products, using products. And TikTok, of course, because that's like the hot platform, gets a lot of eyeballs. But I'm seeing an interesting move of influencers really coming onto LinkedIn. I've gotten 3 or 4 influencers who have reached out to me asking me if I'm interested in running campaigns with them. So I think LinkedIn is somewhere where we might start to see a little convergence of influencers too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, LinkedIn has certainly been pushing its creator mode more heavily.
Oh, yeah.
And there are B2B influencers too. I mean, people somewhat
Oh,
forget that
absolutely.
there's B2B influencers. It's not just, the Kardashians of the world and the Mr.
No,
Beasts of the world.
exactly. Yeah. And
Is yeah, go ahead.
actually, micro and nano influencers are actually more trustworthy in a lot of cases. We've done some research that find consumers actually trust the nano and micro influencers more than some of the larger influencers, which makes sense when you think about it.
Sure, yeah, they have a much more closer relationship often with their followers
Sure.
and their fans. Have you seen this sort of breakdown of brand interest in influencers shifting from sort of going from the megas to the micros?
We have, and we recommend, a mix of all. But we do see micro and nano influencers driving quite a bit of sales through the platform. So
Right.
I wouldn't count them out. And I do think that that's our recommendation, is to work with some of the smaller influencers, especially if you're, if you want to be cost effective.
Sure, sure. But one of the things that obviously brands and OPM agencies that are sometimes stewarding these relationships for the brands and merchants want to think about is, well, if I go all the way down into nano, I still want authenticity, right? And
Yeah.
like I can give a fair amount of time judging and grading bigger influencers and thinking through, the choreography and the messaging and the high touch communications that I have. But once you get down into nano influencers, obviously at that point you sort of have to be much more low touch. So the brands want authentic ambassadors, right? They want authentic influencers that match their brand. So how do they sort of decide how much time to invest as they go from the sort of bigger influencers where they can sort of have one-on-one conversations into that mid-tier where things have to perhaps be a little bit more turnkey and templated, and then down into the micros where just take it and go.
Yeah, I think technology, it has to do with
Yeah.
technology, and being able to leverage tools that you can automate messaging. You can send one message to hundreds of partners at the same time. You really need a marketplace. So how do brands find creators in the first place? A lot of the platforms that offer influencer marketing, including impact.com, there's a way that you can discover your partners based on criteria that you set. And that way you can recruit creators right into your campaign, right through the platform. But it is incredibly hard to manage manually with spreadsheets and your Gmail or however else you're using it. And so I would recommend, if you're serious about the channel, or at least getting your feet wet in the channel, I would start with the technology and ensure that you have the automation in place.
Right, right. Now, obviously, messaging at the bigger influencer levels, you want it to be authentic. You want to give a fair amount of creative latitude to the individual to sort of really, take that message and make it their own. But at the same time, as you start to get into sort of the mid-tier micros and nanos, you may have compliance issues if you give too much creative latitude to these folks. So are there some best practices around that as to sort of when you sort of create these sort of brand messaging sheets for the influencers, give them very tight guidelines versus perhaps a little bit looser as they get bigger, and an opportunity for them to let their creativity shine?
I think the influencers who I've spoken to appreciate brand guidelines, so they know what they're supposed to be saying and doing. They don't like prescriptive content where you write it for them and ask them to post it, because they're the ones who built their audience. They know what their audience likes. They know what they're good at selling or promoting. And so I think it's really important that you don't be too prescriptive. But yes, you need to protect your brand. Yes, you need to have those rules in there. It's capitalized or not capitalized. You can't talk about these things. The influencers I talk to appreciate all of that, because it makes their jobs easier. They know what they can't do, and so they focus on the things that they can. And it's not this open-ended, any type of content works, right?
Right.
Usually it's like a link. When brands are working with creators, they're usually picking what they want for the creator to do, and there's different price points for all of that, of course.
Yeah.
But trusting your creators as much as you can without over reliance on their messaging, I think, is the key, the balancing act.
Yeah, and obviously some industries have a lot more strict
Oh, yeah,
guidelines, nutraceuticals, which is Truth Nutrition. I'm in that category, and you have to be extremely careful
that's
in
right.
the level of latitude that you give to your influencers or any spokesperson, right?
Yep.
Because before you know it, they're telling people that it cured their cancer, right? And that's a big problem.
And finance is another one that has a
Yeah,
lot of,
exactly.
but yeah, I can imagine healthcare would have a lot of, could have a lot of issues.
So we've also noticed a trend in the last few years. I think as many publishers are starting to struggle with monetization under sort of the regular, RTB environments and perhaps economic softness being a contributor, that we've seen some regular publishing brands get much more into performance-based marketing and media and building their own marketplaces and getting involved in writing reviews and covering products, which used to be sort of not something you would see at major publishers. So I'd love to get some thoughts from you on the laggards. Like, should they embrace it? Should some of these publishing brands basically say, listen, this fits into, this is another revenue leg to our stool?
Yeah, so I'll just answer that question by telling you, Meredith Corp, one of the, I think it was Better Homes and Gardens, decided not to do any display ads or any advertising whatsoever on their content pieces. They instead only used links, which is called commerce content, where you're reading a listicle or a review and then you go out and you buy it. And they actually saw, and they did this over Black Friday, over their holiday, which is
Right.
crazy, right? But they saw like a 480 increase percent, and they're not running display ads anymore as a result. So we have a number of those big media companies, like CNN's Underscored and New York Times Wirecutter,
Mhm.
and they're all leveraging this channel because, again, it's passive income. They're talking about the products anyway. They may as well link to them. That's what the consumers want.
Right.
But there is that fine line between editorial and promotional, right? And so I think the best publishers, the ones who are doing the best job with this, are also not looking at the size of the commission. They're actually finding products that they think will gel with their audience.
Mhm.
They might send product in so that the publishers can look at it and decide if it's something that they want to use. They might use it for cooking or something like that, and then come back
Right.
and tell how they leverage it. So I think that there's a lot that can still happen in the world of publishing, and they're constantly having to innovate because they generally get hit the first whenever there's changes, and there's been a lot of changes this year. But commerce content is like a really good solution, and it's something that's working for a lot of the major publishers.
That's good to hear because we've seen all seen in the news where some of them have had to shed staff or go in worst case belly up or have
That's
their assets sold, sometimes to what look like maybe fire sale prices as well. So it's good to see that the innovative ones are sort of at the forefront of doing performance-based
sure.
content as well.
Yeah, yeah, and there's just
Um,
been some demand from it for it. I think,
yeah.
I remember BuzzFeed was one of the few publications where there were lists or listicles, as we call them, and now they're very popular. I think consumers enjoy them, so we need to see more of that for sure.
Right, right. We think about, video as being obviously very popular on the social platforms that are video centric, like TikTok and YouTube. But for, other publishers that are perhaps doing a lot of textual content, do you see video playing an increasing role for them as well, in
Yeah,
sort of creating rich content
for
relating to
traditional
products?
Yeah, for traditional affiliates, putting video content on their websites, on their blogs, in their newsletter, it helps keep their audience more engaged and plays an increasingly important role in improving their conversions. So they need to be putting affiliate links in, of course, all of those things also, but using video is going to drive up engagement. We see on social, anytime we post a video, we get better engagement than if it was just a text. And I think a lot of other companies can see that too, but it just continues to rise. I actually read an article that said long form content is coming back. People maybe have more of an attention span for things that they like or enjoy. So there's some longer form content, but for a while it was all about that snackable content. And I think that's still the majority of engagement comes from that type of short form video.
Interesting. So that's within the video context exclusively, or long form textual content as well, both coming back.
I have not seen that. I have not seen more attention on the long form textual. I think some people just don't like reading. Some people don't have time to read, but somehow they can fit in a video. So
Right.
I think the long form videos are what I'm referring to, but it'd be interesting to see if longer form content is resonating too.
Yeah, do you feel like it's sort of the storytelling methodology
Yeah.
within the long form video content, or VSLs as some people call them, that has been the driver there?
Yeah, I think people want to see other consumers engaging with a product, leveraging a product, not just talking about it, but seeing it in action. I think that leads to the best videos.
Right, right. What are some other best practices that marketers should know? And it's probably, there may be some commonalities across retail and lead gen and services, but there may also be different best practices within those. So any thoughts of best practices, perhaps things that are ignored when you're talking to brands and merchants?
Yes, quality over quantity is a big one. You want to ensure your partners are quality, but you want to also make sure that you're going after the right consumers that are a fit for your product rather than just spending money on everyone. That will help lower the CPLs and support do more with less, but quality is important from a marketing perspective in terms of consumers. It's true with partners too, that it's more important to find the ones that are quality than the quantity. I would say the second best practice would be test new channels. What's working for you now may not be working for you next year. And if you're not on TikTok, you need to get on it. The cost pers, and what I mean cost pers is cost per lead, cost per click. They're significantly lower than Facebook and Google right now. So people should be advertising on TikTok or getting on TikTok. And then the last piece of advice or best practice I would say is like ensure you have a multi-channel strategy that meets your buyers. Consumers need to see advertisements multiple times, right? They want to see an Instagram ad, a TikTok review, see the product in a best of or top 10 article before going to Google to search for the product. And make sure to leverage your free channels. Email is not dead. It's an amazing channel to nurture. Tons of people wake up and the first thing they do is check their email. And we see success with newsletters and things like that too. So I would say those are the three that I would recommend, but there's all sorts of best practices we could talk about.
Sure, sure. A follow-up question to that is, there are obviously sort of impulse purchases that maybe have a different set of best practices around versus sort of high consideration purchases. And, often high consideration purchases, regardless of whether they're a product or a service, hadn't in the past been something that you would see a lot in performance-based marketplaces. But at the same time, once you add the influencer layer in there, you need that educational factor. So you need to sort of nurture the relationship with the customer and really bring them on their journey. And I'm curious whether you've seen a resurgence in sort of those more complex buying decision type marketers showing up in your marketplace and in similar marketplaces.
Yeah, definitely. And B2B is very different than B2C when we're talking about any type of initiative, marketing or otherwise. But for B2B companies, they might be leveraging this channel for things like signing up to a credit card or downloading a paper or signing up to a list of some sort. And so that's more of a binary yes, no than your typical B2B sales cycle, which can last months or years in some cases. So I'm a B2B marketer myself, marketing my business, which is B2C. So I have a lot of knowledge about what it takes to close and win big businesses. When it comes to dealing with consumer purchases, you do see a direct response, yes or no. It's very binary. It's very easy to know if what you did worked and didn't work. So you can try it again if it doesn't work the first time in B2C, whereas B2B, it's kind of like a longer cycle with multiple contacts. And it takes a while to know if your efforts are actually generating anything.
Yeah, that brings up a question that again, as a B2B marketer, we're both doing that in our regular jobs, right? Often, there are these sort of micro conversions or these KPIs that don't always have a direct relationship to the sale, but we know that they were influential because there's, internally influencers within companies who may even have the ability to stop a sale from happening, right? They may not be the decision maker, that sort of mythical person within the
Right.
organization at the B2B level making the decision, but they may have a very strong influence on that. So when you're doing either influencer marketing or other forms of performance marketing, you can obviously do lead gen and sort of lower friction type touch points and KPIs. But are there any other best practices to make sure that you sort of cover the breadth of the entire sort of committee that's making a decision about a product, as opposed to just focusing on this mythical decision maker who may not even exist?
Yeah, it's actually a sales process called multi-threading. Marketers do it too, but it's where we're getting more than one contact on the account. We're getting 10 contacts per account minimum, and we're marketing to all of them, because you don't know who the decision maker is all the time, and you certainly don't know who the influencers are, but you can make some pretty educated guesses based on who your current client base is. So I think that there's ways to do that, but multi-threading includes, again, marketing to multiple people. And I think that's how all marketing needs to be going forward, because other people play such a huge role in purchasing and what they're recommending or what they're influencing. So I think it's an important strategy.
Sure. That's the great point indeed. What has you excited about the next year? I mean, obviously, AI is hot. I don't know if that's, your primary area of excitement, or if there's some other areas that have you particularly excited.
Yeah, I'm excited at what AI will do. So I spoke on a panel recently, and we were talking about AI and affiliate marketing in particular. It's going to drive up competition for our publishers. I think that people who typically have not been great content producers can become great content producers, leveraging AI, and that will drive up the competition. I think it'll get smarter, but anytime there's an innovation like AI, there's more innovations that come as a result of it. And so that's what I'm excited about. We're leveraging it right now in our content. We're leveraging it in our our inbound leads. We're following up with an AI bot in some cases. So I'm a huge advocate. Obviously, there are downsides with all new technologies, and they should be used responsibly. But I'm excited to see what else happens as a result of AI being so prominent in the industry.
Yeah, you mentioned being on a panel, and of course, events seem to be back to a great extent. So, for those folks watching or listening who want to run into impact.com people in real life, are there any conferences that either internal ones or external ones where folks would be able to interact with your team?
I am so glad you asked. We just launched our ticket sales for our big conference of the year, which is called Impact's Partnership Experience. We call it IPX. So if you go to the impact.com website and you go to the insights section, you'll see a page that's dedicated to this event. So we bring all of the partnership ecosystem together. We have publishers, agencies, and brands. Historically, it's been 60% brands, which is great. And it's a 2-day event, June 17th and 18th. Where you can come. There's a lot of networking that takes place. There's really great content that happens on the stage. There's going to be plenty of alcohol and food, which is critical at these corporate events, as you know, and an after party at a bowling alley right down the way. So it's a great experience. You'll learn a lot, and you'll definitely network with maybe some future partners.
Great. What city and venue is it?
Oh, sorry. That's in New York City. That's in the Chelsea Piers.
Great.
The west side. Yeah.
Well, that's super exciting. New York City still likes to think of itself as the Mecca for publishing, although now that publishing has evolved to include influencers, perhaps a little bit less so. But that's super exciting, and there'll be a lot of great folks there, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. We typically see a good turnout. It's a process putting these things together, but they do pay off, and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, I look forward to attending. I'll check it out right now.
Good. Thank you, Kevin. Looking forward to
Thanks
seeing
so
you
much
there.
for joining me.
I appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Thank you.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.